Well, hello, it's Dan here. Good morning, welcome to everybody who's watching, whether you are a new viewer or a long-term viewer. Lovely to have you here. So today I'm going to be addressing two subjects, and the first subject is going to be, should I quit gardening? And the next subject is going to be, should I quit YouTube? So we're going to be discussing these subjects, and what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about a few changes I've made in my life, and hopefully we can get plenty of discussion going in the comment section below. We can all have a nice chat, and I'm going to do this video whilst looking around the garden, and hopefully you could see a few things about what I've got going on here, and hopefully pick up a few things that you might be able to implement in your own gardening. So let's go. So many of you may remember that I did indeed have an allotment. I really loved that allotment. I was basically self-sufficient for vegetables for quite a big part of the year, and of course with regards to the fruit as well, much of which I'm growing here in my own garden, and the fruit trees at the allotment, fruit bushes, shrubs, etc. You know, I really did live the gardening dream, you know, that at least one that the average person can live anyway. You know, very rarely bought fruit and vegetables for many months of the year, and it was absolutely brilliant. Now, at the same time, and also many years before that, I was working, or still am to a degree, working as a gardener for other people. Once again, something that I absolutely loved and do indeed still love to do. Only thing is, it all kind of caught up with me, you know, working 6 days, 5-6 days a week, long days quite often at a very physical job. No complaints, no regrets, glad I did it. If I went back in time, I'd probably do it again as well. There we are. And of course, doing the allotment in the garden in the evenings and on Sundays as well does take a toll on one. And that's something that we can probably all universally agree on. So what I did earlier part of last year, I made the decision to give up the allotment and concentrate my growing on my own garden here. So this has actually turned out to be the right thing for me to do. That phrase, always being at the coal face, you know, always having work in front of you, always having things to do. Sometimes it doesn't leave you time to think about other aspects of your life, career, general health, loved ones, etc, etc. So it really did allow me to think. So I've been working very hard on this garden, building the soil. Very important to build soil, and I've got lots growing here. So it definitely was the right decision for me to make. I do miss it, but here we are, and I'm going into another year, another growing season here for hopefully some lovely success. So we'll talk about another little change I've made as well. So I've made quite a few plantings already. I'll show you those in a moment, but it's really lovely looking at my peach and nectarine tree in here. Not going to be long now till the buds burst and I get them lovely pink flowers. So that really is something to look forward to. So here we are standing in the tunnel. So another change I've actually made is I've reduced very much my gardening business, and what I've done is I've actually went and got myself a part-time job in a care home. So many of you may be aware that I was a care assistant for nearly 11 years before. So I did from the age of 21 till 32 in care. And whilst I was there, and of course I built up my own gardening business, and so I've been a full-time gardener now for 7 years, something like that. At certain points I was doing it as well as being a care assistant as well. So once again, that was quite demanding, but quite often you have to do that when you're building a business, because you need to have the income from your old job whilst you can get your new one going, because of course then bills have got to be paid, etc, etc. But once again, it's a thing I'm very glad I did. I learned so many skills gardening for other people, and once again it was truly part of living the gardening lifestyle. Excuse me, I genuinely did live it, and it was a beautiful experience overall, but certain things changed. So many of you may be aware that I also got myself along the way an inguinal hernia. Now, I don't actually know exactly when it happened. What I did know was there was a bulge in my groin here that shouldn't have been there, really. Wasn't there before. But me being me, and I have heard that among men quite often it's quite common to just ignore things, and I did. and the surgeon said I maybe had it for a couple of years, which was quite interesting. So it wasn't massively sort of like prominent from the outside, but just one side of my groin here was quite expanded more than the other. I put it down to the fact that I am quite lean. Some people might call me skinny or scrawny, but being lean, you know, you could see the sort of sinews pointing down your groin quite obviously, and I thought maybe because of the manual work I was doing and certain training I've done, etc., that maybe the muscle had grown on that side and maybe not the other, and maybe that's how I convinced myself there wasn't a problem. But there was, and this was all occurring in conjunction with everything as well. So yeah, that's all fixed now, so I'm moving on from that, and that is brilliant, and I'm really enjoying my new part-time job in a local care home. It's 2 12-hour shifts a week, so 24 hours there, and that also gives me time on my other days to still do a little bit of gardening. So throughout many times in my life I've worked long hours. The majority of you out there have either done or doing the same. That's just how it is. When I was a care assistant before, I used to work many hours, way over the standard, you know, 40-hour week, etc. Just what you do, isn't it? Because you have to survive. But yeah, so I took a little bit of a step back, but really able to focus on the garden here. So what we'll do is we'll have a little look at some of the plantings I've made so far, and then have a look at a few other things that are going on in the garden as well. So looking here, I'll just show you a few things. So here I've got some brassicas here, so cabbages, and I think there's also some calibres here as well. So look at those. Now, I initially planted these, I've got the date here, I'll just see if I can give you that, on the 31st of January. I germinated them inside in the house, and then I brought them out here. They're quite leggy, so I've set them nice and deep, and I can also set them deeper again, so that really should help with getting some nice sturdy plants. Oh, snail there, we'll just put him out there. So varieties, earliest of all, cabbage variety, earliest of all, very nice indeed, ready very early. I've grown that variety before, and green heading calibres, I've also grown that before. Seeds, I think the seeds for the green heading calibres I got from Real Seeds. I really recommend that company, and I think I got the seeds of the earliest of all from Premier Seeds direct, but that's a very well known variety of cabbage, very tasty and makes great coleslaw, so I very much recommend you grow that variety if you want a nice early cabbage. So I'm in the back garden here. You can see my no-dig beds here. So this actually here is a new one. I'll just move this bench, I hope you can see it okay. So I actually put this compost on the ground there. Didn't put cardboard under it, didn't really need to be honest. This will be perfectly fine. The grass won't grow through that. There's nothing particularly invasive growing in there. So I've got a lovely new growing space here. So I was actually given a load of compost by another gardener. I mean, couldn't have oddsed it really. I mean, who gives away compost? But this other gardener did. They had more than enough that they needed, and they decided to gift me some, which I really appreciated. So that's grand. So the next subject that I'm going to discuss is, you know, about the subject of quitting YouTube, because I've looked on, you know, when you go on YouTube quite often you get it on your feed, don't you, about different people quitting YouTube, whether in gardening or whether in completely different subjects. And I can see why some people are making that decision, because YouTube, at the end of the day, for me, it's a great hobby, which I really enjoy doing. You could share lovely information with people, you can learn from other people. For a subject like gardening, it's brilliant, because you can type in something that you're considering growing or whatever, and probably someone else has already done it, and then you can get information on how to grow it. You can learn and even suggest ideas to other people if they would like you to do that. So I think it's brilliant, but it can be demanding in more ways than one. So basically in terms of time, you know, you can very easily eat up as long as you want filming a video, and once again as long as you want editing it, and then there's no guarantee that that many people are even going to really like what you've done. So there is that aspect. For me, it's not so much about that side of it. For me, it's about sharing beautiful information that can help one another in the garden. Everyone's got their own reason for doing YouTube. Some people want to have a go at it as a career. Some people want to have a go at it as their sort of calling in life, you know, and there's nothing wrong with those things. But in any way, shape or form, doing YouTube can be quite a demanding thing, even in the terms of financial costs. I mean, I remember I bought this camera, which is a Sony A6000. I bought that about 6 or so years ago, and that was about £500, I think, then. Now, for me, it's been a very good investment because I've still got the same camera, and I'm hoping to have this same camera for many, many years. I'm not intending to buy a new one until this one breaks, which hopefully won't ever happen. This little microphone here and the receiver on the top, that was about 160 quid, and I actually had to get that imported from Japan because I couldn't find one here in the UK. And of course then you've got to pay income, you know, what do you call it, import taxes, etc., and duties. So there's obviously little things like that, there's financial costs. But once again, for me, that's all worth it because it enables me to show you what I'm up to here and talk to lovely people in the comments section. And I genuinely hope that I'm helping people with what I'm suggesting and doing here. So my little sort of, it's often described as corner of the internet, and I hope that people out there enjoy my little corner of the internet. So what I've noticed in that part of the garden is some lovely bulbs are coming up. So let's go and have a look. So here I am in my backyard orchard, and I've got my pear tree here, variety Concord, Jubilee plum and Worcester pearmain apple. I've got Lakemont seedless grapes here and here, and an onward pear there, and some daffs about to flower here, and some tulips down there. So beautiful. Now, I've got no intention actually of quitting YouTube. I genuinely love doing it, and what I've always said to people with regards to gardening and many other aspects of life is you could tailor make something according to you and your situation. Everyone is different, everyone's got their own struggles in life, everyone's got their own things they have to do, other things, their own individual situation, family, economic, social, job, career, hobbies. You get it. Everyone is different, and that's the beauty of YouTube, because what you could do is, you know, I can upload this video if I want, and then I don't have to upload one ever again, or I can upload one tomorrow or next week or next month. There's no like rules, so to speak, and that's brilliant. And scaling back a little bit from the allotment, not having such a physical job all the time. Of course, caring is very difficult and very demanding in other ways that being a manual worker isn't. Generally not as physically demanding, but of course, you know, it can be very demanding mentally with regards to who you're sort of looking after. I'm working in a dementia unit, and I have looked after people with dementia before, all them years ago, but never in like a concentrated place where probably 90–95% of people have a form of dementia. So it is demanding, but it's a new thing for me. In those regards, caring isn't new, but the style of sort of caring that I'm doing at the moment is quite new. So it's a new challenge for me, and also what it's doing is I'll be 40 in October. I'm 39 now, and what it's doing is it's sort of opening up the next sort of 20–25 years of my career, because obviously retirement at 65 is genuinely not considered a possible thing in many ways now for you know, certain generations, and indeed other generations before and after. You know, everyone's situation is different, as they say. So I'm looking at the next however many years of career. So by keeping a bit of gardening open and a bit of caring coming in again, that's given me lots of different options. And of course I can continue gardening both as a hobby and as a YouTuber whilst I'm doing that, and that's absolutely beautiful. In 2011 I did my MVQ3 in health and social care, which I'm very glad I did now. So that's, what's that, 13 odd years ago now, but I've still got my certificate, and I'm so glad I did that, because that's enabled me, it may have contributed greatly for me to get this job that I've got now. It's been very helpful indeed, and of course if I wish I can do other qualifications as well, and maybe build my sort of little career for the future. Who knows, in a year's time I might be full-time gardening again, I might be full-time caring, I don't know. All options career-wise are open at the moment. Let's look at these daffs. Look at that, look. So if I wanted, I could cut that down and I could take that inside and put that in a vase, and those flowers will come out and I'll get some beautiful daffs in there on the table or on a worktop or whatever, and that can be a nice thing to do. So if I had to choose one exotic crop to grow in my garden, if someone said you can grow an exotic but you can only grow one, well, the one I would choose would be grapes, because fully hardy round here, USDA zone 8B, absolutely prolific crops. You could take cuttings from these. This is variety Allotment seedless. I've made loads of videos on grapes over the years, so you could check them out if you wish, and year on year this gives me an absolute beautiful crop. So yeah, really nice indeed. And this brings me to my point of the subject of sharing on YouTube. Phone goes off. Many people find, or at least in the early days found, my videos because of my grape videos. There was, hopefully not so much now, but there was a huge misconception that you couldn't grow grapes here in the UK and similar climates, and you indeed very much can, of which I demonstrated very much many years ago. Of course I wasn't the only person doing it, but I did concentrate quite heavily on the growing of grapes in the UK when I started YouTubing years ago, and I hope that those videos are still helping people. So this brings me on to another subject of cost of living. So I dare say many of you out there, a common term used is feeling the pinch, feeling the squeeze, feeling the strain on finances, and that this is indeed a real issue. And we'll just talk in relation to gardening for this in a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit about my business and this in a moment. So this is a cherry tree, variety Stella. First variety of cherry to be introduced, self-fertile cherry, sorry, to be introduced to the UK in the year 1968 from British Columbia in Canada. A beautiful tree. So I paid a certain amount for this a few years ago. I think it was about £30, something like that. But I imagine it's pretty close now to paying for itself with the amount of cherries that it's given me. It gives me quite a lot of cherries every year for quite a small tree. It's a minaret. It's meant to be grown as a vertical cordon, but I've let it turn into sort of more of a small tree really. It's worked out quite well actually, so there we are. So with regards to a tree like this, it might take a few years to pay for itself, but if you look at the cost of cherries, you know, you can get a frozen bag of cherries for about £2 now. I presume that fresh cherries might cost a little bit more, but either way you're going to pay for them. But this is, as I stated, probably paid for itself now, and if I leave the tree in, which I've got obviously every intention of doing, or nothing nasty happens to it, I'll keep getting cherries from it. So I've built myself up like a little investment here, if you will, with regards to this cherry tree, and of course many of the other trees, shrubs, fruits that I grow as well. And of course, the term of cost of living with regards to gardening, whether it saves you any money growing your own food, is a debate that many people will continue to happen, because how much money you actually save growing your own food is always up to debate, because of course growing something like potatoes or onions, which are still relatively cheap to buy in the shops, is it worth growing them at home? Or loose carrots, for example, as opposed to just going down the shop and buying them. That's a debate that will always carry on. But on the other hand, do you really need to have that debate? Because when you're growing your own food, you're getting your own little relationship with your garden. So you're planting, you're nurturing the plants along, learning lots of skills. You know what goes into it. You know there's no spray or whatever it is, whatever way you choose to garden. And of course, you're getting it very locally from your own garden. So you don't need to drive to the shops, you don't need to cycle to the shops, the time, the money that takes, etc. You just pop out into your garden and harvest, and of course the exercise as well. So I think continuing to garden for people is such a beautiful thing to do, and even if you don't really grow that much, you just do a little tiny little bit of gardening, the benefits can be brilliant. So here I am in this polytunnel. Many of my viewers will be well aware of this tree and how much I think of it. Dixie Red Peach, beautiful. She does very well every single year. Got blueberries here as well. I did give her a bit of a prune a little bit earlier in the year, probably too early really. I generally like to wait till the buds have burst before I prune this, but it was touching the top of the tunnel and I really didn't want any damage to occur to it. So there we are. Now, regarding trees paying for themselves, this tree has more and more paid for itself. You know, you've seen the huge crops I get off this year after year. I've got no reason to believe it won't crop beautifully this year, so that's really good as well. So we'll go on to the next subject. So many of you are aware that I very much am into making my own compost, and what I do is I turn this one into this one. The subject of making your own compost, some people find it quite sort of intimidating, if you will, a bit much, but really it's not that difficult. I've made loads of videos on it, and basically the way I look at it is 50% green, 50% brown, 50% nitrogen, 50% carbon. And the way I look at greens, nitrogens, is basically stuff that's kind of alive, if you will. It's probably not a technical description really, and stuff that's dead, for example cardboard, I class that as kind of a brown, which, well, cardboard is a brown. That's how I look at it. But really you want to check out my videos on composting where I show how you can make compost very easily. So some people, of course, they lack much of the basic ingredients to make compost, which is very understandable because once it's all rotted down you do need a lot. But you can see I've got a lot of kitchen scraps there, which largely class as greens, nitrogens. Then you can get your cardboard, hopefully from a supermarket or whatever, something like, which is classed as a brown, that you can use as well. If you don't, grass clippings are of course a great one you can use. You might not get that many from your garden, you might not have a big garden or whatever. You know, hopefully someone can maybe give you some grass cuttings. If they're just going to leave them out for the council to take, maybe you've got a family member or a friend or whatever who'd be happy to just bag them up for you and you go and collect them. Could look into something like that, a little bit of a community composting, if you will. But check out my composting videos, because always returning nutrients to the soil is a very good way to garden, and it's a very good sort of metaphor for life really. Don't keep taking out of yourself or anything else. Always make sure you're putting back, because to keep sort of giving and taking, it's a very good sort of way to garden, and very good in many aspects of life as well.
So another reason why I decided to scale down my business is because of the associated costs involved now. So as a small-time gardener, I was running a van. Of course, you've got all the tools as well. Things break, things need to be replaced. A lot of repairs I did myself, but even then you've still got to buy the parts, fuel filters, spark plugs. Sometimes you can't sharpen your own tools. For example, a hedge trimmer, you probably could do it yourself, but by the time you spent doing it, you might as well just put it in to get it done. Things like that. Insurances really adds up. As a gardener, unless you've got quite a large business or whatever, you're quite lucky in the sense that you don't need to have an individual premises. But if you're like a one-man band, you can get away with keeping your van at home, etc., whatever. But for these people that are having to pay for premises as well, people running shops, the costs now are so high, rents, bills, etc. And then of course you've got to pass these costs on to the customer in order for you to survive. Is the customer able to do that with their own finances? Do they consider your efforts worthwhile of that money? Do they understand the pressures that businesses, small businesses, large businesses are under? And of course there's the ethical question, isn't there, of whether you can go around charging people that amount of money when you know for a fact they might not be struggling, they could be rolling in it, but on the other hand many other people are struggling. And do you consider that ethical in charging that person that much money, and is it the right thing to do? And there's all these little dilemmas that all sort of come. And you do think you have to look after yourself, you have to look after the customer, you have to look after the vehicles, you have to do this and this, and very, very difficult. And one of the sad things is a lot of small businesses and larger businesses as well, Wilco's has been struggling and many of those branches have closed. Homebase a few years ago, Debenhams, Woolworths, the list goes on. The world is changing, and when things change, you sometimes had to change, and I've had to. So there we are. hope you've enjoyed that video. A little bit different, but I've got plenty going on, and I'm genuinely looking forward to the garden this year. So much, you know, I'm looking at things that I can do already. The weather's not quite here yet. Made a little bit of early sowings, but they should do well. I planted a potato over there. A bit of early sowing there, but there we are. Okay, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for your time. You all know I genuinely appreciate you tuning into my videos, and I'll see you all soon.